Yo, off with another one. Channeling still rolls. Plus, some interesting topics happening. Yeah, as the title says, about Jesus Christ. This I've spoken a bit about it in the religion and spirituality topic of it. Yet, I kind of want to add a tad bit more details just to make it a tad bit more understandable. Um, there's noticed it in the religious community again when it came to my mom and a lot of that entourage, but even online and various speakers, they would continuously, how do you say, it's kind of like misquoting what Jesus and other prophets have said, in not understanding that these people were talking directly as being blended with consciousness, with the all. Having attained a point where they understand that there's no separation between you and I and the all. There's absolutely no separation. Even quantum physics kind of goes, you want the science? Okay, yeah, we're all vibration, different densities. You know, all part of the same consciousness, but everything, all materials, matter itself, boiling it down, it's all vibration. So there's no difference. The only thing that kind of separates us apart is what we've learned through the environment and the indoctrination that we got early on, because we were all born blank slates, all as consciousness coming into a body. So oftentimes, especially in the context of religious folks and those kind of meetings, they would often put this aspect of the safety that they have to the Lord or to Jesus Christ, without understanding that Jesus Christ and all the other prophets were straight up telling you, we are all the same. I and the Father are one. I and the whole are one. So if you follow me as that blended being, you're going to understand that process. Not me as Jesus, not me as the name XYZ, which was often not understood. And you can see it as I usually cheekfully, now I don't necessarily pull that up, but cheekfully, you can always bring up a test where it's like, okay, have you listened to this in the news? Yeah, you heard this about this person? Yeah, what do you think? Oh, well, this person's like this because the news said that. There you go, you failed your test. Why? Because you've judged another person the way you wouldn't want to be judged. Off context, off someone else talking about that person. You judge that person the way you wouldn't want to be judged. You failed. But then Matthew blah 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 said this, bring up quotes and such. And it's like, no. There's a difference between the rule book aspect of it and then putting all your hopes and faiths and all your knowing into a being, like a named person, if you know what I mean, like Jesus Christ, or understanding the philosophy that he brought without seeing it as a strict rule sets or doctrine. It is a philosophy. So there's, I spoke about patterns prior and repetitions of patterns, but this is where you can kind of see the difference between understanding what the prophets, various prophets have said, or seeing it as a strict list of rules, or else. There's a very, very, very subtle nuance to that, even in the dialogue, which is why I always recommend people, you want to know about Jesus? Go check out the Gospel of Thomas. Straight up beat per beat instruction, no fluff, no story. And you're going to start seeing the interconnecting aspect of it all. It's the big difference between, not keeping chanting about a specific figure, but truly kind of understanding what that figure was trying to explain. It's not getting wrapped up into the martyrdom aspect of it, or the false association that people have placed on what he was saying. The aspect of, okay, well, he's the one and only. That's it, that's all. And it's like, that's not what he was saying. We are all sons and daughters and various, we are all part of the all, you know? It's not just true one person or true one type of teaching. It's understanding that this blended being already talking from this interconnection with everyone with the words that were available at the time, telling you that if you're following me as that blended being, you will understand how to be in that very same aspect of present. And easiest way is what was it? The gates are open to the ones with the heart of children. Well, again, already explained, but you go back to when you did not have any conscious perception or definition, verbal definitions or words. Well, all open, all exploring, all curiosity. There was no stances. There was no, oh, this is that, so that's something else. No, no, no. You were looking at the world in this aspect of blending. You were just discovering, being created. There was no resistance towards anything else. And then you started picking it up. So that, when you understand that state, and that was the state that was, again, taught through multiple teachers, multiple prophets, it is much easier to kind of understand various principles and philosophies. Again, you don't judge your neighbor the way you don't necessarily want to be judged, meaning nobody's going to fucking know your context unless you talk about it. Thus, you can't be judged for a current action if I don't even know your context. And ultimately, you shouldn't even be judged, because oftentimes, let's say it's a bad situation, well, I can't judge you because understanding your context, that you initially never chose that momentum, you never chose that way of thinking consciously, oftentimes it's absorbed from the environment. Well, then why would I fucking judge you? It's like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of habits that we didn't necessarily choose and a lot of perception we didn't necessarily choose until we understood, or until life just added a roadblock. So I can't choose you, or I can't judge you. And that's basically it. It's really that simple, And that's, you can have it as a cheeky test. It's like you see something in the news, or you hear about something, or there's some gossip. Are you reacting? Are you judging? The same way you wouldn't want someone else to judge you. Because it's super simple. I don't know your context. I don't know what led you to that thought, that led you to that action, that led you to that situation. But I can bet, depending on the result within that situation, that maybe you chose it consciously or maybe not. Again, it's not trial and error. It's trial and results. Okay? It's a subtle, very, very subtle change of language, but it makes a momentum of difference, especially in the aspect that you relate to everyone else. And again, whether you judge yourself or someone else, it always comes from within your own hard drive, your own peripheral. It's your own database. So like I said previously, do you want crap to keep crap in that database just because socially and consciously it's been accepted to keep crap and label people that way? Or are you going to understand the philosophy that was taught by multiple prophets and understand how that aspect of divisiveness and separation, that wasn't our original intention and purpose, And the same goes for their original intention and purpose in creating those texts. It wasn't to have strict doctrine rules so that you can be in one label, one batch, and then have another. No, it's to understand this interconnection to the finer degrees and to the finer granular details, Just the aspect of judgment is one thing. The gossiping is another thing. But when you start noticing how, modern language, and even when we watch television, it's divisive. It's all divisive. There's always another. There's always an enemy. There's always a villain. Yet that's easy, quick judgment. And that repetition just makes it easy to stay in that state. Again, something we didn't necessarily know about society, but the same can be said about religious folks always identifying there's you could say there's safety or there's salvation to just one person, to whatever prophet, or they're gonna chant and sing Jesus Christ in church, but then afterward it's gossip, it's back talking, or it's snippy reaction, or always defaulting back to the quotes. So when you understand that, and again, it's not their fault, it's all repetition. Eventually, maybe I should have called it the automatic pilot or the autopilot, because it does, a certain kind of repetition does bring people into autopilot. You've seen that. I don't want to make fun of you guys, Jehovah's Witness, but you are some of my prime example. Just having conversations with some of you is sometimes the autopilot just kicks in, and it's automatic judgment of the other because they don't follow your rules. And it's like, well, don't you see how it's contradicting? And oftentimes, again, not your fault. Repetition, 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 as well as a crux, I call it gun to head, of you follow that repetition or we're going to kick you out. I had a friend of mine, a coworker of mine, that was struggling with that for an amount of time because his religion did not accept his sexual orientation. And that's really fucked, when you think about that, praising all love and happiness and connection, but then, nope, we're going to have a list of exception. And that's the thing. Always referring to that list of exception or to a prophet or to something else without understanding the philosophy behind it. That's what's been causing a lot of separation when it came to religion. And you can also talk about the extreme left as well. But that is, you can also see it as a spiritual trap too. Only following one teacher, one specific method, one way to go. And oftentimes, maybe it's not working with you, or maybe you're not understanding the philosophy behind it. Personally, I started this whole journey started with me listening to Tony Robbins. And initially, I had no understanding of practical NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, until I started looking into meditation, even the quantum physics aspect of it, neuroscience, and then going, oh, that's what you meant. And that's what you mean by revisioning. Okay, I see multiple philosophers talking about the same thing. Oh, this is how I can use it as a practical method, and this is how I can help other people that way, without telling them you need to stick to that one material. So the same kind of thing happened with Jesus and various other prophets. They are idolized without not saying the proper understanding, but it's kind of like the integration of the philosophy, not the word by word rule sets, if you understand what I mean. The difference is quite subtle, but it makes a world of a momentum change. Because at that point, it's no longer I'm referring back to the man that was here as an idol. His teaching, his philosophies, I can apply it to so many things. There's no exceptions to the philosophies. It's not bound by one specific way of seeing it or one specific interpretation from, fishermen. Nothing against the apostles, okay? Nothing against the apostle. It was a 2,000-year-old game. But you kind of want to understand that there's the state of being that these prophets were, high state, really blended state of being. And the language that was available at the time, even now, like getting and being in a state of non-duality, even in language, because of the common repetition of certain terminologies and terms, is a challenge. But you can also understand how, those fishermen and those various disciples may not have been able to fully understand where these prophets came from, because that state of being was quite rare at the time. Now we have multiple perception and multiple lenses on that state of being, so it is much more accessible to us. And also, we got to thank this technological boom. I mean, double-edged sword, but of course, the intercommunication that we've had helped us understanding that state even further and further. So, have fun with this. Seriously. I mean, 2021 and then further on, as more people start to understand these principles from the philosophical aspect, not the dictatorship, dictatorship rule set aspect of it, you're going to see a lot of people being nice to each other. A lot. It becomes simple. You don't judge anyone for what situation they're at. You just kind of understand from their perimeters of thought what led them to that, and you can just offer options. And if those options are not taken, that's cool. They may find other options that are right for them, as long as you keep in mind their ideal state. Because ultimately, if you're just going to keep focusing on the state that they're at right now because it's a transition state, well, then you're the one feeling negative, not them. In a moment, they could change state. You never know, and that's the coolest part of it. Got to be careful about that whole repetition of a, how do you say, it's like fake moment in time. I guess small little paragraph or small little parallel. When you see a post on Facebook, that present is already gone, was already gone the moment that it was posted. So the state of being of that person is already changed. They could have checked out something else and just changed their mood. Or they could have changed their thought and changed their mood. Yet, oftentimes you look at Facebook or you listen to something in the news and it's like, this is this person's state. That's it, that's all. And it's like, well, no, you change state every moment. So, got to watch out for that fake aspect of time, you know, and same kind of goes with the people you're interacting with. They may be in a shit mood in a moment, but keep envisioning them if it pops up again. Keep seeing them in a changed state. One, you'll feel the change of state. You'll integrate that as well. And then two, electromagnetic field. Go look it up, neuroscience. You can affect that too, which is really cool. So, yeah, that's practically opening up that can a bit more. And hoping, knowing, there's hoping, but I'm more in an aspect of knowing that in the next few years, that tendency, that old repetition of just associating to the prophet themselves and keeping it as strict rule sets, that extremity is going to die down. Mostly because people are going to start understanding how the double-edged sword of it, and also the words, the doctrines, I guess the philosophy is going to be much more well understood. You won't necessarily need to go to church or keep certain symbols or idols unless you want to. But it won't be this aspect of, bow down and worship, because these prophets told you, you all have it within. It's all within. We're all one, all same material. So what they discovered, you have it within. And again, quick little cheat code, I guess, before I go. When you do visualization, ask yourself, how would it feel to be in that state? Or if you're watching a movie, or even if you're reading, let's say, the Gospel of Thomas, from being the person talking about this, how would it feel to explain this to others while being in that state? How does even encountering a person in that state feel? Ask yourself those questions and go off the first intuition and then roll with that momentum just to see where it would feel. Do not discredit your imagination. That was I was going to say a Western tomfoolery, but again, we did not know what we did not know. So, but yeah, we've kind of thrown this aside, kept it only for athletes, but there's so much more to it. Don't tell yourself that you're faking it or anything like that. Get the first intuition that you get out of those questions and let yourself feel that. And you'll see it becomes more and more obvious. Kicks you out of the whole judgmental aspect and going to the worst place ever. You get off that mindset. And also it doesn't push you to another extreme where you're like, whoa, I can do all the sins. No, it's not that. It's balance. It's always balance. There's some extra stuff about karma, but I guess maybe that would be another video. Or maybe I already spoke about karma. Anyway, we'll see. Anyway, have fun, okay? And just play. Be loose about it, okay?